Hello and welcome to a Kooky corner of YouTube, where this week I've gone all squashy. My table's squashy, everything's squashy. It's because I've been making some pumpkins. Obviously September is a kind of month where you want to cozy on down. You want to get a little bit spooky, maybe. I do. I always want to get a bit spooky, so this is my time of year. So if you are interested in making these or things like them, then stick around because we're going to be going through it. I've got my spider needle felting goodies here. You will need some needle felting tools, so you will need probably a 38 star or something similar, something of a number 38 felting needle, one way or another. You will maybe need either one of these two items. This one probably is the better one because it's got 3 needles in. This one's got 5, so it's a bit less easy to control. But go with what you've got. It's quite an easy project because basically we're not going to really hard felt these. They're kind of squishy, and that's what I kind of like them about them. They're called squash. You need to be able to squash them. I did 2 variety. Well, you can do whichever colours you like. I've gone with a kind of orangey yellow and a rusty orange. You could go pure orange if you wanted to go full on Halloween pumpkin. I'm trying to do the little pumpkins that you probably see in specialist shops or sometimes in the supermarket, where you get the ones with all the beautiful colours on them, and I'm quite taken with those. They last for ages as well. We bought one and it just lived on the shelf for ages because none of us could be well, we didn't want to. He became a member of the family basically, and we didn't want to eat him, and so he stayed with us for quite some time. But these ones will last forever. They're not going to go off unless you, I don't know, get them wet and then just leave them to rot. But I'm sure you wouldn't want to do that with such beauteous items. So yeah, we're going to go through how to make these. I'm going to show you how I make these curly whirly leafy vine things. This one's got a leaf on. I'm not sure whether it's the kind of leaf that I like, but I gave it a go. So you could also do that with yours if you wanted to, or you could just leave it leafless and just add some vines in. So what you will need is, you'll need some core wool, like a really clear core wool, white core wool, whatever it is, creamy core wool. It's the stuff that, you know, it's kind of squashy, it's kind of rough, but this is the kind of thing that we're going to need. Let me take you up a little bit because you're kind of very close. You will need some carded batting in a colour of your choice. I'm going to go with this one, which is kind of one I used for this. But I'm going to add some other things into it. If you want to, you can then, as I say, add other things in. So I've got some of this carded Corriedale sliver, and I've also got some Corriedale pumpkin. So we're going to see how we can add those little bits in as well. I'll show you technique to make the stalk and perhaps a technique to do the leaf. It's basically just a bit of flat felting. But stick around and we'll go through all of these things. Okay, so I've got my felting mat here, which is the brush one from Clover. It's the largest of the 2 sizes that they do. I've got a handful. It's a good handful. Let me take you up a little further. The lighting's a bit weird in here today. I do apologise. It's got weird outside and so it keeps changing. So you want like a good handful, depending on what size of a pumpkin you want to make. And what we want to do first of all is to get this big chunky piece of core wool into some kind of a ball shape or a pumpkin shape. Now I'm going for the traditional sort of like flat, well not flat, but you kind of like wide variety. You could build it taller if you wanted to do like a tall pumpkin size like that, then you could do that as well. So that really is now up to you. I'm just going to tilt this a little bit. There we go, just a little bit, there we are. Okay, so as I said, I'm doing the squash and you're kind of just gathering it into that centre bit. This bit here, the bit that we're going to try and felt together, you're not going to see this because this will be on the bottom of your piece. So I'm going to get my pen needle tool here, because what I want to do, if you're at all nervous about holding this quite closely, you could use one of these, which is a finger protector, like that. Could do that. I always put a finger protector on and then use another finger to hold it down. What am I like? I just like living dangerously. Look, I'm still doing it. If you're like me and the finger protectors annoy you, then you can take your chances, but please, please keep these needles away from your fingers. They are not nice. They have barbs on them. Let me show you in the right place. And basically not very nice when they go into your finger. So please try and keep your fingers out of the way. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get this nice squashy shape. I'm trying to get all these little tendrils in here just to kind of felt them in. As I say, this bit here that you see that I'm felting into at the top, you won't see, because it will be on the bottom of your piece. Basically that will be the top, that will be the bottom. So what we want to do is to kind of smooth this out. You could go for a 38 or 40 needle. 40 might be a bit, putting it a bit fine, but what we don't want to do is to get this to, you know, I've shown you how to make this into a hard ball. Well, with this particular thing, we're not going to go that hard with it. We want it to be holding together, but we want it to still be squashy. Okay, sorry about that phone call. How dare they interrupt? Rude. So yes, we're squashing, also rolling it between your hands to try and get that shape. That kind of helps as well, especially if your hands have got the natural oils on them and not too dry. That kind of does help. So we're going to go around the sides as well, but not too much, just where you see kind of lumpy areas that you want to flatten out. We'll be going more into detail with that when we add in the outer of your pumpkin. And that will be more of the time when we're looking at trying to make sure that we have not got any bumpy lumpies. We will make some bumpy lumpies, but that will be of our own design and not ones where it's a lumpy bumpy that it's made by itself. If that makes sense. I do hope it does. Alright, so yeah, just keep squishing it around a bit. As I say, this bit here, this will feel harder because that's where we've kind of like needle felted into it quite a bit to hold it together. So we just wanted to get its shape. That's basically what we're looking for. I think this one is slightly bigger than the other two that I've made, but we'll see, because obviously the more you felt, the more it shrinks down. So we'll keep going. Keep it going round, just keep moving it around. So I'm going to go off now. I'm going to come back when I've got to this to a state where it's less bumpy and more squashy. Back in a tick. Okay, so we've got the basic shape. What we need to get now is our this is a core wool. No, it's not a core wool. Yes, it is a core wool. It is a core wool, but it is of the colour that I required, because you can sometimes get core wool in actual colours as well. You have to be more careful with this because it tends to have more bits in it. It's more of a raw state wool, so it has more of the debris that you'd get maybe in a fleece left in it. So as long as you accept that and you don't mind it, and it doesn't make a bit of a mess on your desk, it's not a problem really. So what we're going to do, we're going to sit our squashy ball in the middle and we're going to stretch this around it. Now we might end up where we've got some bits that we don't really want, so I can just pull those off. Because this is carded, it see, look, there's some bits of straw left in there. Because it's carded, it's kind of a short fibrey thing, so you can pull bits off it easily. And don't worry too much if you get a little gap showing through, because that kind of adds to the whole like pumpkin experience. So I'm just gathering these bits in. You can see that's quite a big chunky bit there. We don't need that, we'll just pull that off. So we get to a state where we have got it all covered, we pulled all the excess bits off that we don't need. And just stretch that up a little bit. That's kind of don't worry if you get big gaps either. You can do things with it. You can cover it over with other colours and stuff. So don't worry too much. We don't want to get too fussy. This is a really good beginner project because it's not too fussy. Anybody can do this and you can get a good result from it, even as a beginner. Okay, because you're not it's not going to be an over felted, not a hard felted project. It's something that's quite squashy, quite cozy, and really quite simple, because you're not dealing with shaping things as such. The only bit of shaping comes in later on, but that's quite an easy thing to do as well. Okay, so back in with our felting needle. If you don't have one of these, do not worry. You can go in just with one needle. It's not a problem. You could also double up and just hold two needles if you wanted to make it. It just makes that felting process a little bit quicker. So not that you always want to go quicker. Sometimes you might want to take it slowly. You certainly want to take your felting slowly when you're near your fingers. A little bit slower than usual. You don't have to plunge it all the way in either. You're just kind of just going through the first layers. Just going to where the barbs finish. And again, just around the sides. You can still keep doing the squishy bit in between your hands. Definitely still do that. Don't worry, as I said, about any gaps. If you want to cover them up, you could just add in a little bit more and then just felt it in, but I'm not worried because I'm going to put another layer over this. I'm going back to my triple needle to do a light felting on the sides, just to catch it all in, hold it together. You can do hard felted versions of this. I'm sure that's also a thing that some people do. I quite like these soft ones. I don't know if you've ever seen the things in the, are they called squishmallows or something? Kind of give me that vibe, but they're more woolly. This is also something you could do with acrylic yarn if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to get some acrylic yarn or some acrylic wool fibres that you can get from World of Wool. which is where most of my wool comes from, because they're really good. And they do have their own acrylic and non-wool fibre section if you are allergic, or if you are doing your felting, if you're a vegan, for example, and you want to felt but you don't want to use wool. Perfectly good fibres to use are the acrylic ones. So they also have bamboo ones as well. So pop yourself over to World of Wool and have a little look at, see, they're shaping up nicely. Have a look at the fibres that they have on offer, because they do change. I'm going to make sure that this is all kind of nicely felted into my liking. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've got my shape, and now I'm going to add in the pumpkin colour. This one is Corriedale pumpkin. It isn't a carded batting. I think it's just like a kind of a tops, I would say, but it's more of a rougher tops. Corriedale is a rougher tops than, say, your merino. So what I'm going to do now is not easy. Well, it is really. If you have a carded bat, then that works better, should I say, than this. Kind of changing my mind, actually. I'm not keen on that colour. Let's swap it out for something else. I love the pumpkin, but I'm not sure about how it's going to go together. So let me have a look in my stashaboo. I have some batting in a rusty colour. Let's go with that one. This is the one I'm going with. If you can see, this just makes it easier. It's kind of an easier ride with something that's a bit more forgiving, because when you do a tops, the tops has all been brushed so that the all the fibres are going the same way. What you really want is something where the fibres are a bit woo and a bit way. That's how I would say it. A bit all over the place, mixed up together, and that's kind of the vibe I'm looking for in this. So I am going with that. It's still in the pumpkin colour variation. You don't have to stick to traditional colours. You know me, I'm not always a traditionalist colour wise, and I tend to go with a bit wild and wacky colours. So, you know, go to town. Use your imagination. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to kind of felt this in, making sure that we're catching down all the loose bits on that top area there. You can stretch it out over your pumpkin. That's going to be the top. So we've got some nice, like, variegated skin going on this. I'm liking that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time getting this to a state where I'm happy with it, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so now we've got our pumpkin. What we want to do is to add on the little indentations that give it its shape. So I did say there was some shaping involved, and this is it. This is the bit we're going to be doing. Still got some bits from my wool on the desk. I'll just clear those off. Be a bit tidy. Excuse my arm. Whoops. Okay. Now, the thing I'm going to use to make my markings on my pumpkin is going to be some of this green Corriedale tops. Actually, it could be merino. This one feels softer. It could be a merino. This is something we can use for this because it's going to hold its shape. I'm just going to separate off a small amount like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of twist it a little bit. Doesn't matter if you don't get it completely twisted. You could actually use yarn for this as well. So that's the base. That's the bit where we've been felting into. So what you want to do is to put it kind of tightly and then felt in the ends so that you have got excuse me, I seem to have a frog in my throat at the moment. Ribbit. Yeah, so felting those in, trying to keep it tight because we want to get that shape. Can you see it's forming? So these ends I'm just going to felt in, and eventually I'm going to try and felt around each of these little portions, but for now we're just going to leave it for a minute, separate off another little section here. So same again, we've made like quarters into it. I can imagine you guess what I'm going to do with it next anyway. We're going to do the same again with the other bits. Now when you're doing this, please be careful. Careful that your finger is not going to get jabbed. So you could either wear your finger protector or just be super careful. Once you've got the ends in, you can just let go of it and it will hold its little place. That's holding quite nicely. So I'm going to just jab this in. This bottom end, as I say, it's the bit that it sits on, so you won't really see this, but try and keep it as neat as you can. So next bit, we're going to put a piece across there and round, and across there and round, so you'll have 8 sections instead of 4. So I'm going to do that now. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so we've got all of our little sections in place. You can, before you felt them down, reposition them to try and make them as even as you want them to be. Obviously it's a pumpkin, so it doesn't need to be absolutely spot on even, but we'll get it as even as we can. I think that's as good as mine's going to get. You can just move it slightly. So now we're just going to felt into it, into the sections, just following that line round with a singular needle, and we're going to do this on each of the sections. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be back again. Okay, so that's all felted in. I'm going to work on that a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you the rest of this so that we can crack on with getting our stem, our stalk, and our little vines on there. I'm just going to briefly show you quickly how to do the vines. This you might want to do the day before you want to actually put together your pumpkin. It's a really simple thing. So we've got this which we used to do our sections with. I'm going to use this for completing these little curly vines, which are really nice, really cool, really simple to do. First of all, you want to get a section of your wool tops. It's got a little bit of something stuck in it. I'm just going to remove that. There we go. So you get something like this, and what you want to do is try and get to the thickness you want it. You don't want it to be too thick, but you don't want it to be too thin and insignificant. Then you will need a chopstick. So what I do with these is I take them to the sink. I run this under some warm water to get it completely soaked through, and then I twist it And I'll just show you how I would wrap it round. So literally wrapping it around your chopstick as it's twisted, so keep twisting it around. And because I want to be a bit extra, this will probably work on its own. This will, when it's wet, it sticks to your bamboo chopstick really nicely, without having to be clamped or anything. But once I've got it to there, it's all stuck on there, I will then have a little bit of dish soap or some hand soap and then just rub it in and then rinse it out thoroughly in first hot and then cold water. And it will still be on here, you just have to be careful not to manoeuvre it too much so the bits stick together. And then rinse it out in cold water and leave it overnight to dry. This time of year it should be okay for it to be doing an overnight, you know, in your house somewhere where it's nice and warm, maybe in the airing cupboard or something like that. And then when you take it off, you will end up with little vines like this. And these are the things that I added on to this. So that's something that you might want to do before you get to the bit where you're completing your pumpkin. I did a few, so I had a few of them ready to go, which is why this one and this one are here. So a couple of chopsticks with bits of these wrapped around, depending on how many pumpkins you want to make, you know, or if you want to add vines to them. You could also add a little felted leaf, which is just a flat felted leaf. You could also cut out a leaf out of ordinary felt if you wanted to, and then maybe felt into it if you wanted a variegated leaf. Just thinking of options that you might want to do. I have seen people who put crochet leaves on these. I'm not sure whether I like the leaf, but it's there for now anyway, just to show you the different variations. You could add in more of these little twirls if you needed to. So you could add as many as you like, really. I think 2 is quite nice. But that is something that you can figure out beforehand and get it all ready and prepared to go. Okay, so we have the leaf, we have the pumpkin, here it is. And what we need now is the stalk. So what I'm going to do now is put together the piece of material that we're going to use for the stalk. And I'm using scraps out of all the things that we have here in order to do this. So I've got this piece of rusty coloured wool. I have got some of this ochre colour, and I've got a little bit of this green as well. I'm going to add into the mix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just literally ripping it apart, putting it back together again, trying to get a mix of all the different colours. If you see that you want to add a little bit more of something else in, so I might add a little bit more of this green in. So just take a bit of that, and I'm just ripping it apart, putting it back together again. Okay, now we've got something that looks a little like this. I'm going to go in with my big tool. I'm going to take it off its guard. There we go. And we're going to flat felt it. You don't have to go for too long. You just want to get some kind of rectangle going on like this. So we've got some kind of flat felted piece. Remember to take it off and get rid of that bit. Get rid of that bit. This bit will do for what I need. It's not an exact science. It is something that you will play around with and you'll know when you've got exactly what you need. Okay, so I'm going to tuck those ends in. I'm going to leave those bits a bit floofy at that side. And now I've got my chopstick again, handy chopstick. And I'm just going to kind of create a cylinder with that felted piece. Pulled it off my chopstick. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this end floofy, and I'm going to quite hard felt this stem. If you think your stem is too big, which I think this one may be, but actually no, looking at my pumpkin, it's a little bigger pumpkin, so I'm going to keep going. I can always trim it down at some point if I need to. Now the top of my pumpkin, so I've designated this as the top end, I am going to felt from the side to give it kind of a flat top, to look quite like where it's been cut from the vine. Be careful when you're doing any sideways needle felting that you don't catch your finger with the needles. So if I want that to be flatter, I can just rub it on my worktop surface like that, and that kind of flattens it out. Can you see? And then I'm going to just keep going. This end is left floofy, and there is a reason for that, which I will go through with you in a moment. So the more you felt it, the smaller it will get, the tighter it will get, and the harder it will get, as in hardness of the felt. It's not as squashy, as you can see, it's not as squashy as the pumpkin itself, but I quite need it to be harder in order to keep its shape for this. So I'm going to very gently just felt that top down a bit more. You can do it from the side if you want to as well. And can you see it's got all the variegated colours in it now? Looking quite pretty. If you've got any stray hairs that just keep getting in your way, just pull them out of the way. And there we go. I'm going to measure it against my pumpkin. That's quite cool. Yeah, once that's felted in, that will be probably the perfect height. I might add this leaf in. So because I've made it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it before I do the before I add in the stem. So position the leaf where you want it to be. You might want to hold it until it's kind of felted in a little bit. And then we'll get our little curls. I might just use one. I'm going to add those into the side as well. They only need to be felted in. So because it was one piece, I'm just felting it in the middle of the piece. So we've got two ends that hang loose. I'll felt those down. Make sure it's nice and secure. That will also give you a little indentation at the top of your pumpkin, which your stalk will then fit into nicely. So position stalky and then felt it in. Make sure it's central. Try to keep the tendrils of the vine pieces out of the way, because you don't want to felt those in any more than they already are. And I'm kind of going in at an angle on those pieces that are the floofy end of your stalk. Let's say the flat end up at the top now. That leaf does look rather small, but hey, pumpkins come in many sizes and so do their leaves. And when you're happy that everything is in place, then you will have your very own pumpkin to display on your mantelpiece or in your autumn display or wherever you put your things together. But I think they look rather pretty and they are rather cute, and I will maybe include a shot of these all sat on my mantelpiece right at the very end so you can see how they look. Anyway, that's it for today. Hope you've enjoyed looking at this and how to put together your own pumpkin. As I say, you could do your purely Halloween pumpkin in absolute orange if you wanted to, but I quite like these variegated ones. I've got a real feel for these and they are going to look really nice sat on my mantelpiece. Have a lovely day, have a lovely rest of your week, and hopefully I will see you on Friday with another edition of Spooky Kooky Corner, or not so spooky. But we're getting to that time, people. It's getting there. Have a great one.